crazy. Every question has a story with a person attached to it. You were my person for one moment, like 400,000 or 500,000 I hear. So I was like, well, if you could do that with that guy, I'm hiring. I'm done. I'm in. You could blow up. And that's all I heard. I was like, all right, well, I got nothing else to lose. What are the essentials? You need your phone, you need internet, and you need some food. That was it. So I had.
Welcome to episode 10 of Mike Drop. Today, I am with the one and only Milton James. Milton, how are you?
Doing phenomenal. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing wonderful. Tell everyone out there in real estate space where you're from.
Well, I'm in Orlando, Florida. Centrally located Winter Park. We cover, Orange County, Seminole County, Lake, hour and a half radius from Orlando, Florida.
Gotcha. How long have you been a real estate agent?
Since 2011.
Wow. And what got you into the game of real estate?
Man, my mom, she's a realtor, and I saw her big fat checks, and I wanted some of that.
You thought might as well get some of your own, right?
Yeah. I was tired of working retail hours and saw what she was doing. So really.
So what kind of work were you doing before? You said retail. What kind of work in retail?
Yeah, I sold cell phones at Verizon Wireless back in the day.
Did you feel like your Verizon Wireless sales experience would transfer over to real estate?
I think so. It's a quick sale. People walk in, you have to build, quick rapport, tell them a silly joke, and then, kind of get them on your side.
Gotcha. What did your mom think when you said you were going to go into real estate?
She was excited. It's funny. She always told me to, and I'm one of those kids that whatever mom said, I would do the opposite. So she was happy that I finally started listening to her.
Right. So before you got into real estate, what did you imagine that it looked like? Because it's so funny what people imagine real estate looks like on the outside, and then they actually get to see what it looks like on the inside. So being on the outside of real estate, obviously having a mom that did it, what did you think it was going to look like?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So my mom is a very relational person. She'll take her clients to one client. She'll have breakfast, lunch, dinner, over. So I thought it was very lifestyle oriented. My mom worked a lot of builders, so she would always tour these new construction properties. So I always imagine me being in a new construction home, eating the cookies and drinking the sparkling water. But that definitely
living the good life, right?
Living, she's a Buffini girl, so they talk about the good life, and so
absolutely.
That was what I saw.
So did you join her team, or did you decide to start off as a single agent?
Oh, no one ever asked me that. Thank you. That's a great question. When I first started, she tried to make me a buyer's agent.
Okay. So what was that like? How long did that last?
It could have probably lasted a lot longer. I had a negative influence in my ear. So I find that, when you're a buyer's agent and you have a partner, they're always pointing out what you're losing versus what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
So I had someone at the time who was saying, well, if you had 100% of that deal, we would make a lot more money, and really didn't look at the big picture. So I think if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have stuck it out with mom longer, looking back. But, ultimately I just, started my own thing 6 months later.
Right. So did you actually start with the Buffini model, I guess, at the beginning in terms of getting into real estate? So I guess, because so many people, there's so many different ways to get into real estate. So what does a new agent do doing Buffini? Because obviously it's by referral only, but you don't have any people in terms of database. So what did that look like for you personally? Were you working your mom's deals, or were you trying to go out to whoever you knew as a friend and try to sell them a house?
Yeah, see, the problem with her business model was it was kind of split. She's a traditional agent. We started in the Keller Williams system, so the Keller Williams Red Book, they talk about having a big data, 1,920 people in your database, right. And Buffini kind of talks about having a small, really high level, database. She only had 130 people, and so it's very difficult to scale off of 130 people. Easier to scale 2,000 people, but the thing is, a lot of agents still take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and kind of start nitpicking of what they like about each system. So I think the direction of what she was trying to build, the leadership of the people that was pushing her probably wasn't there.
Yeah,
versus what we have now.
absolutely. So after 6 months, what did you do?
Oh man, we had a huge fight. I transferred offices and I started over again.
Okay.
My buddy's mom, who was probably going to be my first deal, she bought a Prius, so
Wow.
I went without money. And then I got divorced because I went from 70,000 to 18,000, and then real estate started.
So how did you end up from Buffini to Mike Ferry? Because obviously those are two completely different strategies and ways to go.
Yeah, one of the things that I got, it's kind of like spiraling forward. Um, Mike Ferry, obviously through Steve, introduced me to you, and one of the things you taught me through Tony, because we always have these chains of events, is
Yeah.
one of the things you always say is you always want to make the problem the solution. Right?
Mhm.
You go through a problem like a cloud, like a buffalo goes towards the storm, so that it ends sooner. So the storm called, at the time we called the storm divorce, led me to borrow my mom's Capital One, and led me to find a retreat called the Superstar Retreat, and led me to be in the back row with a polo shirt on, and then led me to walk up to Mike and tell him I got divorced. And, what do I do? I'm brand new. I just got into real estate and I'm getting divorced, which I found out at the event that I was getting divorced. And the worst thing in the world ended up being the best thing in the world. I met Mike Ferry.
Yeah. No, I mean, as I said, I was fortunate enough to meet Mike Ferry, 2 months in the business. So, he completely changed my life in terms of just learning exactly like what a real estate agent should do. So, I mean, what did your first year look like? Obviously, you're in Buffini. Now you're trying to get out on your own. What did that first year look like overall?
Yeah, that
Because so
year
many
one.
agents have this idea that you just come into real estate and all these things happen, and now you're kind of going through adversity your first year.
Yeah. Yeah, year one, it was really bad. It was like quote unquote hell. You go from 70,000 working a retail job with benefits to 18,000, gross revenue before any expenses. That's tough. And so, I sold my townhome, got a divorce. Wife at the time left. So it was a lot of pain.
Hmm.
So it really created
What
um
made you keep going? I mean, a
well,
lot of agents would just
it,
quit.
yeah, it was the exposure. You go to these events, you see someone sitting front row making $500,000. You meet the number one agent in your office making 600,000. You're like, it's possible. And you
Yeah.
talk to the people like yourself, and they tell you what they've been through, and you just, Lee Marcus, your good friend. He said on stage once, most people aren't good because they were not willing to be bad.
Of course.
And so I just sucked it up and realized I had to be bad for a while.
Yeah. I'll never forget, my first action workshop, they did a thing and Mike got up in front of everybody and he was like, stand up. And he's like, how much money do you need to break even? And one guy was like 15. He was like, how about you? And another guy was like 20. And then another guy was 30. And it was just interesting to see that these people, were breaking $30,000, $40,000 a month just to break even. I had, at that time, I was making $5,000. So to think to make $40,000 to break even, it was like completely like out of my mind of what I thought like could be possible. And I remember looking in the front and seeing everyone in their suits and they were in their ties and they were, freshly shaven. And, at that time I had a goatee and I had, my khakis and a polo on. So that was like my first glimpse into like what it actually looked like. So I guess once you were exposed to Mike Ferry, how long did it take for you to kind of get in the process of actually being able to execute where you're being taught?
Well, I came back and I was like, okay, so that's interesting. I was exposed to it, but I didn't dive into the deep end until later. So I came back, I got into Keller Williams coaching, I did Tony Robbins coaching, I dabbled a little bit.
Mhm.
It wasn't until 2015 when I got into MFO with a gentleman named Mark Ramey. And the reason that happened is, I was I was exposed to a gentleman named Joe Jones in my market who had a Mike Ferry coach, and he took him from I think like 150,000 to like 67 deals. He made like 400,000 or 500,000 that year. So I was like, well, if he could do that with that guy, I'm hiring him. I'm done. I'm in, and that's where it started.
That's amazing. So let
Yeah.
me ask you something. How good were you on the phone initially in your first couple of years? Because, obviously for most people, you need to know what to say to then go out and do it. Obviously, you're being exposed to different coaches, different philosophies. So what was that like your first couple of years, not necessarily knowing what to say?
It's crazy. Every question has a story with a person attached to it. Like you were my person for one moment. There was a moment at Keller Williams where a young guy like me literally grabbed his headset, put it on my head, stuck me in his closet, and made me read the For Sale by Owner script. And I'm in the closet just sweating, anxiety attack, panic attack. And I was so relieved when the guy hung up because I was like, oh, look, but I was so bad. I'm still, again, still bad. Like there's no one that's good. You just become more comfortable.
Right. So how long did it take for you in that system to really start to feel comfortable where you really felt like you're starting to pick this up? Because I always tell people there's really three parts along the way. Part one is where you actually believe that it's possible.
Yeah.
Step two is where you actually start to believe that you can do it. And then step three is you start to really understand your true value. That's normally the hardest part for most people. So what was that like, starting to understand that, what, not only is this possible, but you know what, I can actually do this?
Yeah, I can do it. It gets back to the success cycle, PITFAR, PTFAR, programming leads to thoughts, to feelings, to actions, to results. I think once I started hitting 100,000, 150, getting into the, six figures, then I started getting a little bit more confidence. And then, I'm driven by recognition, so when I started getting recognized, by Mike and all these people, Steve Powers. And, when I start getting the recognition, the call outs on the conference calls, when you're showing up to coaching calls and it's a group setting and your coach says something nice about you, that goes such a long way. That really helps.
100%. A lot of people look at that as being bad, as ego. But I think when you're driven to be the best, part of the reason you do it is for recognition. When you put enough time in where people see you as something like better, that's an amazing feeling. It's one of the things as I was coming up that, it was amazing to hear how people see you. Because, day to day, it's like you don't really see how good you get day to day, but other people around you, they see it because they don't see you every single day. It's kind of interesting, that whole process.
Well, if you think about, like, I'm a mama's boy, right? And the first person you want to get recognized from, or recognition from, is your mom. You just want your mom to be proud of you. So whenever my mom says, I'm proud of you, I just freaking melt. And when you're married or when you're in a relationship, you just want your girlfriend or your wife to say, honey, thank you. I'm proud of you. You're a girl dad. You just want your girl dad, thank you. I'm proud of you. Thank you for working those long hours. Like that. That's happiness. You know what I mean? That's recognition.
No, 100%. So I remember, I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago, you called me. You said, look, how can I become a better agent? And we were talking, and I said, look, Milton, make 100 contacts a day. And I remember, your eyes,
Yeah.
What was that like when I said, Milton, make 100 contacts a day and do that consistently? And I remember asking, are you just saying it, or are you willing to do it? Like, oh, I'm willing to do it. And I was like, and call me, text me, let me know how it's going. What was it like going from where you were before and then trying to actually go out and hit 100 contacts a day? Because when I say that, so many people think I'm joking. Like 100 contacts is impossible. And I did it for a lot of years. I don't think there's ever been anybody that did 100 contacts a day consistently and didn't dramatically increase their business. So what was that like, going from where you were then to where you were after?
Well, thank you. I don't know if you remember how I got in touch with you. I coached with Steve Powers at the time, and
that's right. That's right.
I went to see the Dallas Cowboys play in DC, or they were playing the Redskins when they were the Redskins, and Steve said, "Connect with this dude. Connect with him." I was like, "I don't want to connect with him. He's a Redskin fan." He's like, "Trust me. Just call Mike Putnam when you're there." We didn't connect. We kind of texted back and forth.
Right.
That was before COVID, and then I finally called you because I called Steve. I was panicking. COVID had hit. I was having a decent first quarter. I had like 10 or so under contract. And then all of my transactions fell apart. So I didn't call you just like, hey, how's it going? I called you crying. Like I was in tears. And so you pretty much just asked me, he was like, have you ever been to a prospecting clinic? I said, well, yeah. He's like, well, and I tell this story every time I speak, by the way, and you're like, well, what happened at the prospect class? I said, well, I set 18 appointments in the 2 days. He goes, well, during COVID, what would happen if you treated your day like a prospecting clinic? You said one of three things can happen. Number one, you get a fat pipeline and we stay shut down. Number two, you can have a whatever, you can maybe get some listings or whatever. And then number three, you said you could blow up. And that's all I heard. I was like, all right, well, I got nothing else to lose. I don't have any money. Steve said, what are the essentials? You need your phone, you need internet, and you need some food. That was it. So I was forced to stay in. And literally the circumstances, if you really think about it, you make the problem the solution, their circumstances forced me to stay inside. I couldn't go out. And so from 8 o'clock till 8 p.m. every single day for 30 days, made 100 contacts, like you said. And that first week, I listed 5. That first month, I listed 18. And all of a sudden, you have another problem. Every time you have a solution, you have another problem. So the problem was you have all this inventory, and then you start panicking again, and I'm calling you. Because of the Mike Ferry organization, then I called Bernie Gallerani. Then I'm calling everybody. And the
SOS.
Everybody takes a call, And all of a sudden, a couple months later, everything went pending, and that $130,000 just showed up, and that was a life-changing event.
Gotcha. What was it like going through that process? So many people go through different phases. Everyone thinks that real estate is just beautiful thing up. Obviously in 2006, I had my own moment, very similar to that I was fortunate enough to have Steve as my coach, kind of guiding me through, what that process looked like. Because, the thing people forget is that in every market, you need a different version of yourself. Even now with the market we're in now, you need a different version of yourself. If you're not a good listing agent right now, you're in trouble, So taking listings, knowing how to reduce property, it's one of the most important things. But I think people's mindset when they go through tough times, learning how to control your mind, because there's nothing worse in real estate than needing to make money and being in real estate, because every no hurts, every rejection stings a little differently. So how are you able to manage your mind? Because for most agents, that's where they quit, because they can't calm their mind enough when they need to be able to do their job when they need it most.
Yeah. It's 100% a mindset game right now. It's like maybe 99.9 and 0.01% skill. Because the market is so crazy. Like, so in the last, from the time where we met to the time where I kind of blew up. And when I say blow up, I don't mean statistically, meaning like I went from 30 deals up to 86, and then kind of I've been hitting
your first breakout
in my breakthrough, but I'm bumping up against that 50, 60 transaction right now. And so my coach, Tony Smith, he keeps talking about how do we break through the next level. And so right now it's mindset, it's learning how to price property, calming people down, letting them know it's going to take some time, setting the right expectations, having to give Ritz-Carlton customer service, because, like in the last few years, I had a really good food truck.
Right.
Now I have to go get a store and get staff, stuff like that. So that's how I look at it. So like now I have to figure out how to get to a fine dining experience versus a food truck.
No, 100%. Let me ask you, I guess from 2021 to the market now, what things have you seen in your own marketplace that you're, having to adjust to? Because as I said, every market requires a different version of you, and what works in one market, normally you need to alter or you need to modify what you do, because, the problems we had in COVID, are completely different now. In COVID, you listed a house, you got 100 offers, they thought you were the greatest agent. And now when you're listing properties, it doesn't matter where you price it at, they're not selling. I think I did a video the other day. I think right now, if you're a good agent, you're probably getting 7 out of 10 listings sold. And if you're probably extraordinary, you're probably north of 8. But I don't know anybody right now at scale that's selling 10 out of 10, because if you're taking 10 out of 10, you're probably leaving a lot of meat on the bone, meaning you're not taking listings where they may or may not sell.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm averaging 10 to 12 listings a month right now, on a regular month. Unless something tragic happens, had some deaths in the family this year. That was tragic. Sister, dad. But one of the things that I learned recently, and Tony Robbins always talks about it, but Sabrina Ferry, by the way, she said it and just spoke to me. Change the story you tell yourself. So for the last 12 months, I've been, when my dad died, my car got stolen, my sister got cancer. My story was, oh man, poor me. And then I kind of took it out on everyone around me. And not a lot of people knew, not a lot of people even care. But as a man, of course, everyone expects you to be, this tough rock, which is fine. That's what we should be. but I started kind of subconsciously telling myself a negative story, and I started taking on too many listings, almost too many bad listings, just to stay busy, to kind of cover up and mask, the pain. So now, the stories I've been telling myself, and it's crazy how all of a sudden it switches your results, is more of a positive perspective story. And so I think that gets back to the whole 99% mindset. Everything in the challenging market that we're in, it has to be about mindset. Because if my mind is right, then what I see, what I smell, what I hear, all the messaging to the clients, it'll just get a better result.
100%. So what are probably the top 3 things right now that you're trying to work on as you go through the end of 2024 that you're really trying to hone in and work on so that you can have an extraordinary 2025?
So number 1 is probably being more conservative with my spending. I find that, we talked a lot about it just as friends. When you start going above a certain income, you still outspend yourself. Mike always said, that nothing more expensive than an uncontrollable ego.
That's true.
So really, for me, it's controlling my spending because, the biggest competitor in the market is an overextended budget. So when you start overextending yourself, yes, there's a balance in thinking big, but there's also a balance in thinking big versus being having business maturity. So
of course,
that's what I'm learning, is just how to manage the budget, how to not overspend on certain things, saying no, not being such a pleaser, because I want to say yes to everything. It turns out I'm a little amiable, right? So I want to make everyone happy. Just saying no and just controlling the budget. Probably number 2 is just setting the right expectations. So, I've kind of prided myself the last 3-4 years on taking 100 listings a year, which sounds really cool until you have to pay for the half that don't sell. So really trying to take my listing number down, maybe to like 75, 80, 6, 7 a month that'll sell. So really going from a 50, 60% sale rate to like an 80% sale rate is the goal in 2025. And then 3rd, just being a kinder person. I'm really accepting the amiable part. Whenever someone says, you're amiable, I don't really agree with it because, I feel like I believe in being a man, like an alpha, but I also feel like it could be a skill in the sense that you can translate the fact that I care about the clients, I care about the people around me. So really tapping into that amiable side. And I think it's really being more versatile and just being more empathetic with people, understanding their situation, and not being afraid to say, you know what, I care about you, and because I care about you, I don't think you should sell. I think you should keep the house, and really having more turn downs and fall throughs. And I think that's the biggest. That'll go a longer way, especially with the database.
I mean, I think amiables, honestly, that have skills are probably one of the best kinds of real estate agents, because you have to realize the ultimate power in selling is caring. If you care about your customer and you care about getting them what they want, like, you'll do things for them that nobody else would. I wish that I had more amiable in me. You know what I mean? Because, for me, I've always been a driver direct, but I can be impatient. I don't listen, at times. And it's like, neither one of those are good qualities. I think everyone looks at a driver as being this like beautiful thing. And, every characteristics has positives and negatives. But what do you take out of the positives is what you actually do with it consistently to help people. But I mean, I think so many people forget that the ultimate way to sell is to serve. When you believe that you're trying to help people, you'll do things for them that nobody else will.
Yeah.
What kind of a mindset do you take day in and day out prospecting doing that?
Prospecting is a habit now, but it used to be my job every day is to leave the tribe and go hunt buffalo. I don't go back to the tribe until I find the buffalo. Now, I think the mindset is still that, but it's also like my mindset every day is to go out and find someone to give world-class service to and really help them out. And even if it means we're not working together, that's fine, because I'm noticing people are coming back to me now. Don't sell, and then they go hire someone who I'm guilty of being the guy overpromising. So now I'm starting to see those come back to me. I'm really happy about that.
Gotcha. So what does your schedule look like now so that people have a reference in terms of what Milton James' daily schedule looks like?
Yeah, well, there's always 2 steps. Yeah, Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Of
And
course.
sometimes what punches you in the face is uh, eating too much the day before, sleeping in, going out and party. That might be the punch in the face. So ideally, it's 5 a.m. to 7 morning time, a morning routine. 7 to 8 get to the office. 8 to 12 prospect. 12 to 1 lunch. 1 to 3 prospect. 3 to 6 prospect and appointments. And I keep my schedule very like between this and that. I tried being very strict. I'm not analytical. Sometimes I can be, but I give myself a lot of flexibility because ultimately the most important thing is I'm either finding an appointment or being on an appointment. So sometimes I'll get here like 9:30, 10. Whatever time I get here, that's my start time, and I'll spend 5 hours on the phone until for prospecting.
Do you struggle with staying disciplined and doing the things you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it?
Everything. No. The most important thing for me in my life is prospecting, but the other things I don't really care about. Meaning, like, I don't feel like I have to be disciplined with those other things just because I'm disciplined with the 5 hours. Because to me,
Mhm.
time is an illusion. Time is a moving target, and I've seen people get up at 12 o'clock and then crush it. So for me, as long as I get my 5 hours in, everything else just kind of works around that.
No, absolutely. How have you worked with work and home balance, having a
There,
personal life and being an agent? Because for a lot of people, that's a challenge as you start to really scale up your business. Actually, having time for friends, relationships,
yeah.
stuff for yourself. What does that look like for you?
Well, the problem is always the solution, right? So, for me, I've been gifted by the universe and God to be single, no kids, and you always feel sad about that sometimes. But really, my mission right now is to get to 100 sales, and it might take me a year or two, and that's as a solo agent. And so, I don't have the I have the privilege of not having to be balanced. The only thing I have to worry about is getting taking care of my mind, body, and spirit, and of course my business right now.
And how do you do that? How do you take care of yourself from a mental standpoint? Because I
Well,
think honestly, taking care of yourself is probably the most important thing. For me, every day I get up, I prime, I work out, I get my mind in a state of gratitude because I don't know that I could do all the things that I do if I didn't come from a place of gratitude every day and ultimately try to take care of yourself.
yeah, priming is something that you gave me through Tony Robbins. So whenever I get out of bed and I'm conscious, I put YouTube and priming starts, and then I try to get either on the bike or get to the gym, move, and then once I get back, I'll prep some food, and then get to the office. And then when I get to the office, try to have as little as time as possible from the time I arrive to getting on the dialer. And then once I'm on the dialer, everything else just kind of flows.
Absolutely. So let me ask you something. At this stage of life, outside of doing 100 deals, what motivates you?
Retiring my mom. So my mom, she's been having some heart trouble, and the other day she scared me. She called me. Fourth time I heard her cry. The first time was when my grandmother died. Second time I almost joined the army. Third time I got married to a person, and then fourth time the other day when she thought she was having a heart attack. And so I really would like to retire my mom, and that's what I'm working on in 2025.
Okay, so is the goal to retire her in 2025?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
What would
and
that?
it's take over her mortgage and take over the tuition for my brother. Those are the two things that are very measurable.
So if you actually put together your 2025 plan in terms of transactions, income you want to make,
Yeah,
what is that?
it's 75 deals, and
Okay.
I'm averaging about $10,000 a check.
So that'd be about what, 750,000?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it could be a little higher because my average price recently have gone up. So I'm modestly projecting 10,000 because of the market compressing. But I'm at about 12,000 a check right
Gotcha. Let me ask you, if you were to go from 75 to 100 next year, what do you think you would have to do different to hit 100 than do 75 your current plan if you decided to have a stretch goal?
now. Yeah, the going down to 75 is the thing. For example, for the last 3 years, well, first of all, it took me 10 years to hit 50. For the last 3 years, I've been trying to touch rim and hit 100, and my my coach convinced me to drop it to 75. And he asked me, he said, have you ever had a smaller goal than your actual goal? I said, yeah, 2021. He said, what'd you do in 21? I said, 86. He said, well, how many other years did you have a bigger goal and you never hit it? So 21 was my big year when I had a smaller goal. And so we're just trying to reverse the universe right now.
So how many hours would you have to prospect a day, and how many contacts would you have to average for the year to hit that?
5+ and 60+. 5 hours, 60+ contacts a day. And I average that out.
And where is your top 3 lead sources now for business?
Expired, database, and then other. Other being Mike Ferry referrals. I'm starting to work for sell by owners. I'm getting a lot of referrals from other agents locally. So that's really helping out.
What's the number one source?
Expired. Expired because I spend most of my time on it.
Gotcha. How many hours do you think you spend a day?
Of the 5, probably 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Just gotta enjoy it.
How many expires come out every day? And
a lot. So in Orlando today we had 70+.
Wow.
Yeah. Right now I'm looking at the market. We're probably because we have a lot of cancels during the day. Yeah. Right now we're sitting. It was like 40. Sorry, and right now we're sitting at 56 for the day.
Wow. Yeah. And in Virginia, Northern Virginia, we had 6 today. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
6 versus 50. Yeah. When I first got into real estate, I mean, that was my number one source was expires because we used to get 30 to 40 a day. I mean, when you got that much, it's there's a hefty amount you can take from that.
The other thing I'm working on is weaning my market into Orange County. Right now I'm covering 6 counties. And so I feel like if I could get everything compressed in Orange County, I'll get more signs, more exposure locally, and I'll understand the market more. And I won't have to drive as far as I give better service.
And how good are you at your database, which is obviously the most important part for an agent as you scale your business out long term?
I'm getting about 30% of my business from my database right now. I've done a really good job with cleaning it up. I had like 4 different databases, and I'm calling them quarterly, and I just started calling my monthly list for about 2 months now. So, I think it will take some time. We'll see.
So what's your past client referral database look like in terms of, is it just quarterly calls or do you do mailings? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I have a monthly mailer that goes out. I've got the quarterly calls to everyone, and then I've got a VIP list that I've been only working 2 months now of about 50 people that I'm calling. The first of every month for me, it used to be expired day. I've relabeled it to the VIP day. So that's making sure I call those people. After I call the expires, I go to the VIPs.
Perfect. So if there was an agent that's just getting in the business or just agents in general that are out there struggling right now, what would be 3 pieces of advice that you would give them that they could do to make sure that in 2025 they have a better year than 2024?
Yeah, Mike always talks about the 3 Ps, as a new agent: prospect, preview, and practice. And so, I would treat it like a 9 to 5, 9 a.m. start, 5 p.m. finish. That's prospecting. 8 to 9 practice, and then maybe 5 to 6 or sometime in the afternoon when they get bored, go preview their local market, preview property.
Absolutely. Well, I'm curious for you, going into 2025, what are probably 2 or 3 things that you're going to do different than what you did this year as you scale out 2025?
Be a little bit more exclusive with who I spend my time with, number 1. Number 2, be a little bit more exclusive with who I call. I stopped calling under 300. I'm probably going to move that up. And then probably number 3, just really stay more detailed on my scripts, on my presentation, and just really look at kind of like relearning the system. Relearning everything that I look at what got me to 50, and then do that to get to 100 or 75 plus.
Gotcha. Have you thought 5 years from now how big of a business you want to grow?
I toy with that, and I have thought about it, but sometimes I get too big in my thinking. So I'm really, I know that once I hit 50 and past it, I can't go back. So really, everything is all in on getting to 100. So I think within the next 2 to 3 years, I have to get to 100, because once you hit that upper limit and you get past that upper limit, now it becomes the floor. So really just try to get north of 100.
Now, what kind of support staff do you have now kind of helping and guiding you with just transactions and obviously customer service?
Yeah, I've got one phenomenal assistant. She also shows buyers, so we've got a team of two.
Gotcha.
Um,
To get
I
to
think
75, would you need to bring anybody additional on, or you going to run with what you have? Do you think?
right now I'm running with what I have. I may, once we get north of 60 again on average, I may bring in like a third party vendor, like a transaction coordinator. And then we may look at moving her, Andrea, to become a buyer's agent because she's
Mhm.
phenomenal at her customer service. She's a mom. She has like 4 kids. Latin moms make the best buyer's agents. Yeah, they multitask. So we may move that around, but right now, just trying to stabilize because I feel like I'm in a spaceship right now, and everything is kind of bolts are flying off, and right now we're just trying to get through the atmosphere until we can cruise a little bit.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, how important do you think peer group is for you in terms of your development to where you are now and obviously to where you want to go?
It's probably the most important thing because what happens is crabs in a bucket. You get around the wrong crabs, they'll pull you down. But if you start monkeying around with the right people, they'll pull you up. So it really is. It's so important, man. I mean, knowing Steve, knowing Brian, all these guys. I prospect every day with Zach Bear. You know, when they say, yeah, you should change this, change your swing or change your pitch, you listen. If
Yeah.
someone else says it, you kind of like, okay, you don't really hear it. So it's very
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, having a peer group, of people, that are chasing the same kind of dreams as you, to me, it was one of the most important things when I was coming up, with my alpha group that we had and just, keeping the accountability and talking and being able to hold accountable and being able to ask people questions on the days you don't feel weak. It's good to have people in your corner that can do that.
well. It's one thing to ask someone, "Hey, how you doing? How's your day going?" It's another thing to ask someone, "Hey, how did it feel to hit 1 million the first time?" That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So what's it like to open up another business? It's what's it like to drive a Rolls Royce? So, like, you can't have that conversation with everyone. And then the thing is, like, if you tell someone who's not in your peer group, yeah, I want a Rolls Royce one day, which I do. I got this car the other, and it was nice, but now I want more. Now, I hear you guys talk about, I was talking to Josh Barker, and he's financial free. He's got like 300 investment properties, and that one day that's what I want. Yeah,
No, absolutely. It's so funny what people think it'll be like. I always envisioned the day that I hit 1 million, that I was going to take all my staff and everybody, and we are going to go to the club, and we are going to pop bottles, and we were going to celebrate. And I'll never forget. It was like, I think the first year I hit 1 million, it was maybe like early September, and I remember I was at the office at like 9:30, and like 3 deals had blown up, and just one of those days that you just wish didn't happen. And I remember looking and thinking, wow, this is what it feels like. It's funny how you think something is going to be and then what it actually looks like.
yeah. I heard someone say, to once you hit 1 million, you realize it's not enough. Then you realize you need 3 million.
Well, I mean, the truth is that, the same problems I had at 1 million was pretty much the same problems that I had at 2. I think that, as you scale your business, the same kind of problems comes up. It's, what is your breaking point? How much can you personally handle before you need to hire the next tier of person, which is why I ask you in terms of scaling up to 75 or 100, what do you think you would need to have differently to be able to give you the support? Because, one of the things that I wish I knew now that I didn't know then was how important having enough support people is. Because, for me, it was just like, I felt like I always had to do anything. I'd have one assistant, where now, I'll have 2 or 3, because it's always better to have more assistants because you give better service and they can just do things for you that free up your time so that you can prospect, go on appointments, do lead follow-up, and obviously negotiate contracts, which are like your core 4 that you need to spend time on. So what percentage of your time do you think in your system now are you able to spend on your core 4?
I'm about 85%, probably more on the, we call it the plan, prospect, lead, follow up, go on appointments, negotiate. And so
Absolutely.
I could prospect all day. Again, every problem has a solution. Every solution has a problem. So my tendency is to get lost on the dialer. So that I got to make sure that I'm switching my sources every hour, every couple
Yeah.
hours.
One of the biggest problems I see so many agents have is that they spend so much attention getting a hold of the expired, the for sale owner, the past client, but then they never actually do the lead follow-up with that person, not realizing that for most agents, 95% of their business is going to come from long-term lead follow-up. How good would you say your lead follow-up is compared to the amount that you put into just prospecting new people?
I think it's up there. It's up there with the best. I could string together 100 listings, but my biggest challenge where I'm working on is that customer service and that listing sold ratio. And so once I figure that out, that'll be, I'm sure there'll be another problem. But as far as lead conversion on the front end, I feel like I'm world class. But on the back end, when it comes to servicing, that's where I can use some improvement.
Is that improvement from you or just improvement in the processes?
Both. Both, because my mindset a lot of times is if you give me the wrong, if a seller gives me the wrong response, I'll just let them go. I'll let them out of the contract, find another one. But I'm learning this year. I just sold 2 houses that were on the market for 300 and 400 days. It really giving them that option to just keep going. I'm learning to be more patient with the process. So patience.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the market rate, I have one guy that we were getting under contract today. He wanted to be let out. You keep buying time, you keep adding value. And he'll go under contract today. But, that's a person that you could have easily let out. But I don't let people out. I want to make sure that we go through the proper process. Because, a lot of times sellers don't understand all the things that we do, even though like every single week we give weekly updates. But it's funny that when sellers know that it's time to reduce the price, it's funny how sellers all of a sudden they start to disappear. So now when I'm doing my follow-ups, I used to say, hey, this is your real estate agent, Mike Putnam, calling to give you your weekly update. Please give me a call back. Now I actually just call and give them the entire update over the phone because I had so many sellers that would say, you haven't called me in 2 weeks. And it's like, I left you 2 messages. Now I leave 2 messages with the update so they can't say that they didn't get it. What is that like for you?
Yeah, similar. It used to be I would wait until Friday to give the update. Now, because I'm carrying 15, 20 listings, my coach, he wants me to split up the update. So, if you have 20 listings, 20 divided by 5, that's only 5 updates a day. So it's easier to eat an elephant one bite at a time daily. So that's been helping a lot, keeping my energy low. Because the problem with it's not that we don't know how to do seller updates. It's that it'll take us off the prospecting. Like okay, I gotta make my 50, then I'll get to it. But by the time you hit 50, you're exhausted. So, I think just taking it one bite at a time. So, for example, if I took a listing on a Monday, they get updates on a Monday. If I took it on a Thursday, they're Thursday people. So, just setting that a standing appointment with them.
Absolutely. You're kind of like me in the fact that you just like prospecting. And most people think that that's like a maniac. What makes you love prospecting? Because honestly, it's the part of the business that most agents hate.
Well, it just, again, if you fall off the couch and you feel pain, you'll never go on the couch again. It's just it was the one thing that got me to the cash. I mean, that's really it. And then that little 90-day period, it propelled me to front row, right? So prospecting solved my problem at that moment, which, gave me the recognition, which I like, and so prospecting for me has always been the vitamin that worked.
No, absolutely. I mean, prospect literally, it is the most important thing in the sales process. So, Milton, it was great having you. I can't wait to have you back on next year to see how 75 is coming. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you, they had any questions, contact you, reach out to you, how do they do that?
Well, at Instagram at Milton James Orlando, cell phone number 407-572-4458, and Facebook Milton James Orlando. I'd be glad to talk.
Great. Well, Milton, it was great having you. Look forward to having you back.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mike Putnam.
Thank you.